Well, all right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today for our webinar on SBIR funding. We have with us today Eric Agelet of ACIR, and we're going to have him take us through an introduction to what is SBIRs and also talk about what it takes to go for these sources of funding through grants. And then we have a workshop coming up here shortly that we want to invite you to join as well. So with that, let's go ahead and pass it over. I'll give it to Eric. Eric, go ahead.
Great. Thanks a lot. As you mentioned, my name is Eric Agelet. I'm with the ACIR, which the title is quite a mouthful, but it's the Alliance for Commercialization and Innovation Research. We're a nonprofit that works with grants and innovation research and programs around the world and domestically. But I was asked to talk about SBIR funding because I've been working with the SBIRs for several years now, mostly as a commercial reviewer of different applications in Phase 1 and Phase 2, specifically with the National Science Foundation and the Department of Defense. And I'm, like I said, a very big fan of SBIR, and I think they're great for innovators just starting out. So I'm going to give you just a very basic overview of the programs of funding available through SBIR in the United States today. It's been going through some changes, good changes, fortunately. And after that, you can ask some questions, or we can talk about the workshop coming up that's being run by the Foundation for Innovative Communities. So let's go ahead and start. Let's get this out here. So SBIR and STTR usually amounts together, but and we're going to talk about both of these. Most of the agencies run both an SBIR and STTR program. So SBIR, the Small Business Innovation Research. Good thing about these programs is they're actually set aside by law, so it's not a discretionary every year that they'll change the funding for. These are set asides from their budgets. So that, for example, the NSF is 2.6, and I believe that's going up this year to 3.5% of the actual budget is dedicated to grants that have to be given under the Small Business Innovation Research. STTRs are pretty much the same thing. It's just that there you have to have a partner, a research institute in the United States. So if you're a business, you have to have an agreement with the laboratory, with the university, to go forward on developing whatever that technology is. Whereas the SBIR, you can be a small business doing it all on your own. And we'll take a look at, again, those are set asides from these agencies that have to do this. And it's every year, and they put out solicitations for a wide variety of technological groups that you can get that money for and develop it for, develop your technology with their money. Here's a list of the U.S. agencies that have STTRs. You can probably get DOD, Department of Defense, and Homeland Security dwarf all the rest. Looking about $1.7 billion just in SBIRs. And a couple of the agencies have the STTRs as well. Again, I mentioned the NSF, Department of Energy, NASA. They're smaller, but they do exist. And again, these are great opportunities for small businesses to do it on their own through the SBIR or partnering with a university or a lab for the STTR. These numbers are actually going up. There have been some changes here. And I think it was mentioned on the right, it says there's like $2.5 billion available with all the different programs. This, I believe, is going up to $3 billion. So there's a good chunk of cash being available for these grants for small businesses and for research laboratories in a variety of fields. So again, we'll talk a little bit more about what specific fields they are and the different solicitations. Some of the agencies are granting agencies, and some of them will do contracts, and there's a difference, and we can talk a bit about that. But as you can see, all of these agencies have a good amount of money set aside. They have to do it by law. Specifically, it's already earmarked to give grants to small businesses. So these are great opportunities. That's non-dilutive funding. You don't have to pay them back. I'm, like I said, a big fan. I highly encourage all the small companies I know that need a little extra funding, especially early on, to look at the different SBIR programs. So all of these programs usually follow the same kind of pattern. phase 1 through phase 3. Your phase 1 is the early stage where you've got your idea. You're doing the feasibility study, do your first very early stage prototype. They will give you about $150,000 to work that out and get to that feasibility study, that proof of concept, to get to that early stage prototype, bench scale. Give you about 6 months to do that. So that's, this is extremely early, just to prove your concept if you've got an idea, and that you're going to kind of bring this to see if it's going to work out. Phase 2 is once you already have that proof of concept and you're really getting into the meat of it now. By the end of phase 2, you really should be getting to a workable prototype, maybe something beta prototype that you can bring into the field. And they're really going to emphasize a lot more on commercialization and the business opportunity. In phase 1, since you're so early on, they don't expect you to know quite as much about the business side. They just want to know that you have an idea about business in general, that is this even going to work commercially, is there a market for this at all? But they wouldn't at this point require you to have identified partners or distributors or a co-developer at this point. Phase 2, by the end of phase 2, and when you write this in your application, your plan, you should have that in there, discussing where you're going to be going, who you're going to be talking to, what partners or what competitors you'll be working with or working against. But the phase 2, like for the NSF, I believe it's 750,000, went up from 500. Different agencies, you can see here, they can up to almost $1 million, and you get 24 months. So the amount of money they're giving you and the time is significantly increased to move that forward to much closer to the market. Phase 3, this is usually, depending on the agency, this is what they call the commercialization stage. For the NSF, they really expect you at this point to be working with a partner or to have it in the market, and they will maybe match some funding. Like I said, they seek the external funding. Different from agency to agency. Again, with the NSF, there's a specific matching that they will do, where instead of phase 1 and 2, well, they'll just give you the money. Phase 3, if you have a partnership with a co-developer, with a company, that's possibly an agent or distributor, and they're going to put up some money for that final bit of development, NSF will match it. Other agencies, that's not quite, they won't do that, but that'll be on an agency basis. But for the phase 1 and phase 2, like I said, that's straight out money for you guys, that you don't have to do the matching, and it goes straight to you, as long as you can show that technically it makes sense and commercially that there is a chance of this. Before, there was much more emphasis on just the basic research. Now they're really trying to make sure that the innovators and the applicants do have an idea of the commercialization and that this can be a proper business, that this can make money. Again, they're not going to take that money from you. They don't expect equity or a percentage or commissions or anything like that, or royalties, but the whole point of this is to get these technologies out into the marketplace and available to the public. So they do put a lot of weight, especially in the phase 2, on the commercial aspect of your plan. So eligibility. This is kind of, again, just an overview. We can get into the details. I'm sure in the seminar they'll talk about this in more detail. But for SBIR, remember that's a small business innovative research. You have to be a for-profit business, so no nonprofits. You have to be U.S.-based, it's American citizen. Small company, by the government definition, that's 500 employees or less. The PI has to be primarily employed with a small business. So you have to show that the principal investigator, the main person who's taking on the grant and will be doing the research, has the majority of the work, 51%, employed with the business that is doing the grant. And they said 51% owned by individuals or independently operated, so again, it's a U.S.-owned company, but owned by individuals. Or, as you can see, owned by owned by a company that is owned by individuals. Now, in the last, they've just changed this, that they're going to start letting a small amount of the grants be applied for by VCs. But again, I think it's only about 25%. The rest have to be small businesses that are owned by individuals and independently operated. So that's for the SBIR. STTR, again, small business, has to be for profit, but you have to have a specific partner in a research lab, a university, institution. So you have to have that that formal agreement together with that institution, and you can see there the percentages. So 30%, 40% by the business at least, 30% at least by the research institution. What they mean by research institution: college, university. Here's where you can have your nonprofit research organizations, partnering with them, or federal research or development center, so some of the federal labs. Any of those would qualify as a research institution, but you do have to have that formal agreement between the institution and your business. And that would include who's got the rights and what's going to happen. So you do have to have, again, a formal agreement with that research institution of how you're going to divide up the IP for any of this research that you're doing. And again, just like the other one, just like the SBIR, they do want to make sure that this is not just an academic exercise, that once whatever you're going to be producing at the end will be able to go into the market, you are going to make an honest effort to commercialize this and get it out there, as opposed to having it sit on a shelf or just doing research for research's sake. The SBIR, STTR programs are not for that. They're really for making sure when you finish and you have this product that you're going to then continue and put it into the market, and that this is a business opportunity. So, basic process, it's pretty simple. The different agencies will describe what they at different periods of the year. So they'll have fixed periods 2 or 3 times a year, depending on the agency, saying, okay, we're looking for technologies in IT or biomedical pharmaceuticals, or for diagnostics or new materials. And each one of these have these kind of cones. And then if it is a granting organization like the NSF, anything that fits into that, you can submit to them, and they'll say, hey, this is interesting, and it's got a good commercial potential, we'll do it. For the contracting organizations, they will ask something very specific. So they will say, we are looking for a technology that can do X, Y, Z, and here's what we're going to be doing. So those solicitations will come out at fixed times. Each agency is different, but it's not a secret. They're all on the web pages there. This is public information. I'm sure they'll talk about this in the seminar. But each of the agencies put out those dates. They put out what they're looking for, and then the applicants, which would be you guys, the small businesses, you prepare. The proposals are relatively short. They say 25 pages. Usually it's into sections, technical versus the commercial. For example, in the NSF, you have 15 pages that you can do for the commercial side. I think it's a little bit more for the technical side. If you're not fit into those cones of what they're looking for tech descriptions or for their different industries, you can't just send it in and say, oh, I've got something you didn't ask for. They'll just throw them away, so don't waste your time on those. But some of them are quite broad, so that you can take a look and see, even if it's not specifically exactly what they're looking for, if it fits within that general proposal. For example, again, the NSF, they will take them. Can't be totally off the wall, but again, they try to make broad categories that will take in a lot of different technologies. So the evaluation, at this point, like I said, the phase 1, they're really looking just to see, does it make sense technically? Some idea of the commercial potential or the wider society benefit. Phase 2, they're much stronger on the commercial and the society benefits. So you have to really be able to demonstrate that. For example, again, for the NSF, you can't just jump into a phase 2. So there is a pattern. You do have to go through the phase 1, and then you go to the phase 2. But again, this depends on agency to agency. But they are going to be taking a look at the technical and the commercial potential, and they'll take a look at your company. All the companies, all the applications, excuse me, are based on even it doesn't necessarily mean a large think tank or a research institution with 300-400 employees, even though it still qualifies as a small business, is that much better than somebody working out of the garage or having 3 or 4 employees. That's not the case. But they do want to make sure that you are going to be serious and that you're going to take this as far as you can, commercial-wise. And then they make the awards. This is for the phase 1 they're expecting. as you can see on the timeline there, about 6 to 9 months. The process is pretty well detailed on the webpage when you do the applications. I'm not going to say it's easy. I mean, it is, there's certain language and there's certain forms you have to fill out. Budgets have to be just right. But again, considering that it's free money that you don't have to pay back, and it's non-dilutive, I definitely think it's worth it. Wrapping up here, why do I expect for you guys to do the SBIR? Well, 2 different agencies, like I said, some will do grants, some will do contracts. If it's a grant, you never have to pay it back. It's non-dilutive. If it's a contract, then you've got an instant customer and you've got instant credibility. There's no equity dilution. Nobody's going to ask you for a percentage of your company. You don't lose your IP rights. All your applicants are on equal footing, so you're just have the right just as much as another company that's done this for years. And then depending on the agency, and the NSF, National Science Foundation, does do is you can subcontract. You don't have to do everything yourself. There's a certain percentage that you have to keep it under for subcontracting. Obviously, they want to make sure you are doing the work. But there's certain things that you can subcontract, and you put it right in there, and that's not a problem. They also allow for overhead, and they can allow for an actual fee on top of that. So really, there's hardly any downside at all for doing these SBIR STTRs. If you don't get it, it's not a black mark against you. It's just maybe wasted time doing the application. So that's very, very briefly what the SBIR is throughout the different agencies, what kind of money they have and they're expanding, and what they look at for the grants and how to apply.
All right.
So very briefly, but if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
All right. Well, for those who have not been on our webinar before, we have a question box on the lower right-hand side of the screen. Several of you already have typed in some questions. I'll read those out, and Eric will answer them. And if you have questions, go ahead and type them in now about SBIR specifically, and then we'll have a follow-up presentation by Larry Peterson here in just a moment. So, Eric, the first question is, what is a fast-track application?
The fast-track application?
Yes.
There's different when they do the different proposals, they will ask for the different kind of application that you have. Fast track application, like the name implies, is just a way of getting those certain bids in for those different solicitations on a quicker basis. It's going to depend again on each of the agencies. And I'm not going to lie to you, when I did all the NSF stuff in the DoD, we didn't do any fast tracks. So I can't give you specific information about how that differs from the regular ones. All I've known that it's, again, just like the name implies, that they have certain applications and they're looking for certain proposals that need to have a quicker timeline on, and so they can get those, that will grant those, review those applications and do those grants quicker. But I can't, unfortunately, again, with the NSF, when I worked for the last 6, 7 years, we weren't doing any of the fast tracks, so I don't want to lie to you on that.
So next question is, you mentioned there are SBIRs from different departments. Mm-hmm. Can you describe which ones are easy and which ones are hard to get?
Well, I don't know about easy. I mean, I guess it's all relative, right? And my experience, again, is with the SBIR for NSF, National Science Foundation, and Department of Defense. We're looking at missile defense agencies. I don't know if it's easy. For example, just let me give you percentages that I think that the NSF threw out in the last couple of years. For phase ones, they were, for the phase 1 applications, I think the acceptance rate out of all the applications was around 12 to 13%. So maybe 1 out of 6, 7, 1 out of 7, 1 out of 8. Phase 2, 35 to 40% that are being accepted. Does that mean it's easy? No, but I mean those numbers are pretty darn good. I'd also read somewhere else, not from the NSF, but some other organizations that said a large percentage of the applications that are sent in for any of these SBIRs are disqualified just for not following the instructions. So they said if you take those numbers out, and it was a pretty high percentage, I can't remember, 20%, that they just didn't fill in the right forms or add the right appendices. If you take that out and then look at the success rates, quite high. For phase 1, if you are in the, again, for the National Science Foundation, if you are in the cone of what they're looking for, and it's something new, it's something innovative, and you show in your phase 1 that it's technically possible, you've got an interesting, innovative approach, you have a very good shot of getting it. Phase 2, they want to see, again, the more commercial side, and but the numbers speak for themselves. They're 35 to 40%. I remember when we do our we do our commercial panels with the technical panels, we get about 5 or 6, and probably about 2 get passed. Right. So for the DoD, they're usually looking. Those are contracting organizations. They're looking for something very specific. Is it easy? No, but if you think you can get the next, I don't know, anti-magnetic Kevlar armor, you can get a huge grant/contract with the DoD.
All right. Next question is, do you know the standard grant size and term for last year?
The standard grant size, again, and I'm just going to go off my specific information for the National Science Foundation. They've just increased the limits to 150 for the Phase 1 and 750 for the Phase 2. Before it was 100 and 500,000. Because that's the maximum limit, when I was doing all of my reviews, I very rarely saw anything that was under 100,000 or 500,000. So nobody says, oh, you know what, I only need 40,000. It wasn't really like that. So they're always in the 90 to 99,000 for the Phase 1 and 475 to 500,000 for the Phase 2, remarkably enough. It doesn't really prejudice you if you ask for the full amount. And, of course, we understand some of that's padded because it's quite strange that all of those grants came in exactly at the maximum. But that's not really a question. If they think you have a good technology, that you are the right team, and your idea is sound and you've got a commercial market there, they don't question, unless you've got something outrageous in there, they really don't question the budget. And when there have been some questions of the budget, when there's something that was outrageous, if everything else was still good, they'll say, you know what, we're going to put this on conditionally, yes, and I'm going to go back to the leader of the NSF and say, we'll go back and I'll just talk to him and say that's not allowed. So it didn't disqualify. So there wasn't really an average number. Everybody always asked for the max.
Okay. Next question, is there a central location to look for SBIR availability from all of the different federal agencies? If not, where can I find information from and about the individual SBIR providers?
Yeah. I know there's a website that does grants in general called Grants.gov. For the SBIR, I don't know actually. That's a good question. Paul, do you know if there's a specific SBIR clearinghouse for all the different agencies?
No, I'm not aware of a central one. I think each department has its own.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's one that bundles them all together because they're all different agencies. If you just do NSIF SBIR, there's a whole web page there. And, of course, I'm sure the seminar will talk a bit more of that in detail. Right. But, to be honest, I don't know if there's a clearinghouse. I don't know if there's an official clearinghouse. I know there are websites out there that talk about all of them in general, and a quick Google search will show you. But I have not seen or am not aware of an official U.S. government clearinghouse website.
Eric, this is Larry. There is a SBIR.gov it provides a lot of central resources for all the programs, but you do still have to go to each program's website for the application. But if you have some central questions, you can just go to SBIR.gov.
There you go. Good. Thanks, Larry.
So the next question is, if you are turned down, can you request the reasons for dismissal?
Yes, and every time the report is done by both sides, the commercial team and the technical team on each application. And regardless if it's passed or not passed, each of those the commentators, they all should give their feedback about what was good and what was bad, and that should be available to the applicant. So you should get that feedback and say, hey, this is very specific, not, oh, we didn't like your technology. No, you should be very specific about what we thought was faulty and why you didn't pass and why you did. For Phase 1s, again, at least in the National Science Foundation, you are allowed to then take that feedback and go back and resubmit after you've hopefully taken some corrective action. For Phase 2, you don't. You get one shot. But for the Phase 1, you should get that feedback from the panel, and then you can then take that feedback, hopefully improve, and then submit the same application.
All right. The last question, if you have one, please type it in. This is the last one I see, is, are the presentation materials available for download? I guess, Eric, are you going to make the slides available to the audience?
Sure. These slides that I just gave, there's no problem. Most of this came from the SBA and the Science Foundation anyway, so they're not mine, proprietary. But I'll be happy to make those available. I'll call Larry and Larry to make sure that they can get it to you guys either through the webinar or tomorrow at the or whenever, excuse me, the workshop is. Not a problem.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Eric. Our next speaker up today is Larry Peterson. I'm going to go ahead and move the slide over to Larry's computer. Larry, if you can go ahead and accept that and put your slides on the screen, we'll now pass it over for Larry to talk about an upcoming workshop on SBIRs and the group that's behind it. So, Larry, go ahead.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. Glad to have the opportunity to speak to you all today. I'll just give you about 90 seconds on the Texas Foundation for Innovative Communities and then talk about the workshop. You know, we are a 501c3 funded primarily by the Office of the Governor to develop globally competitive innovation. You can call that tech industry if you like. Our focus is economic growth, higher wages, jobs growth, tax base, investment. We know that competitiveness is derived 80% from the innovation that you create. So, you know, we focus on the things that cause you to efficiently translate innovation into high-growth companies. We focus on clusters. You know, there's kind of a special analysis technique that we created to do this. I won't go into the details, but that's kind of a pictorial representation of how you develop a robust innovation ecosystem for a particular industry. This is a technique used by multiple communities, including Austin, to develop strategy for specific industries. Amongst our projects, we create and manage the Texas Association of Research Parks and Incubators. We do high-tech internship placement and development. We developed the ecosystem analysis framework that you just saw. We're a strategic partner for TMAC, which accelerates the growth specifically of product-oriented companies and especially manufacturers in the state. We're also the advisory committee designee for the Emerging Tech Fund to manage the Austin RC and the Panhandle RCIC, the only entities that will be managing two in the entire state. We've partnered with ATI to build a statewide system of clean energy incubators. And we run these SBIR, STTR with some ARPA-E discussion as well to accelerate Texas innovative capacity. So, you know, there's a fundamental problem. Texas early stage capital has dropped dramatically. We used to be number 3, now we're number 8 on a multi-state regional basis. Silicon Valley by far number 1, but the entire state of Texas is number 8 behind, you know, lots of other peer regions. Kind of embarrassing. It's dropped by 50% since our peak in 2000. So early stage capital is a critical need. SBIR is one of the answers, not the only answer. You know, you also have ETF money, you have angel money, you have some early stage VC money, but very, very little early stage VC money. SBIR, in many ways, as Eric mentioned, is better than VC or emerging technology fund money. It's non-dilutive. It's a grant. You don't have to give up ownership to anyone, and you essentially get a contract vehicle back to the federal government. It's like getting a one-line GSA contract, so you have an exclusive license to sell that innovation back forever. Under the new rules, Eric mentioned the limits within NSF, but most of the other agencies will be having phase 2s that go up to $1 million soon. And the NIH still has limits that are higher than that. I believe under the new rules, they'll be going to over $2 million. So SBIR is a significant source of funding in Silicon Valley. We find entrepreneurs prefer to pursue SBIR money well ahead of any venture capital money. So you can see Texas history. In 2011, the last year for which complete data is available, we got $80 million. Our foundation is focused on tripling that amount for Texas. So you can see where we sit compared to our peer states. California is the big kahuna, wins 1 out of every $5 given out by the SBIR program. Texas has only 3.89%, so roughly a sixth of what California gets. California only has 50% more population than we do. You can see between California and Massachusetts, you know, they're well over a third of the pie by themselves. So it's a grossly underutilized asset by Texas. When you adjust for population, we rank 34th in the nation. So, you know, certainly something where we can do a lot better. And some of the things that we'll talk about are simply emulating what some of the higher earning states have done. Not really anything terribly innovative, but some things that are common sense. We have three parts. We have an educational part, we have a part to accelerate competitiveness, and then we have an in-depth quality improvement system. So the first part is the education. We have 4 workshops coming up next week. The first in Austin on April 8th, followed by 9th, 10th, and 11th in San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas. These are really low-cost workshops. They're just the cost recovery for the manual and the lunch. I think the Austin one's $49. The others, I think, are $75. Coming up Monday, the information to register will be at the end of this presentation, or you can go to our website at txfic.org. The SBIR workshops are led by a nationally recognized speaker, Tibbetts award-winning speaker. That's the highest award the SBA gives for assistance in the SBIR program. Ray Friesenhahn, he is with TechLink. He has helped folks in 12 different states win more than 300 SBIR awards. So he will be there along with angel investors, research universities that would like to team with you, with prime contractors, and with other prolific companies that will tell you how they have won SBIR and ARPA-E awards. Then we have the Texas SBIR STTR Summit and Conference. This is not an introductory tutorial. This is made for folks who already know that they are going to submit, that have an understanding of, you know, at least basically how to write a proposal. We will bring in all the federal program managers. Now, of course, with sequestration, they have travel limitations, but they will be there either in person or through video conferencing to make you know, individual updates on their particular programs, particularly the big 5 from DOD, DOE, HHS under NIH, NASA, and NSF. But some of the others will be there as well. We also bring in lots of those teaming elements from around Texas. The incubators, the VCs and angel investors, the prime contractors, the you know, all the assets you might need statewide to build a highly competitive system. So that takes you from, you know, the idea of building a potentially competitive proposal to one that is you know, a strong prospect for a win. So there's structured networking with all those speakers. You can pick any single one, or you can pick multiple actually, and have 15-minute one-on-one with any one of those assets. And if they're not there in person, they will be available via a one-on-one video conference that day. So you can, one of the key components of success is being able to socialize your unique capabilities or technology with federal managers that are trying to solve specific problems. In particular, as Eric mentioned, some of these are solicitation-driven. If you don't have a solicitation that matches your technology, you could wait the rest of your professional career for that to happen, or you sit down with your program manager and explain how you can solve their hard problems. And then voila, 3 or 6 months later, a solicitation to match your capabilities will appear. There'll also be a suite of advanced tutorials on protecting IP and commercializing your product, and there may be some discussion from the ETF about some support they will lend to SBIR winners in Texas as well. And then finally, we have the Texas SBIR STTR Resource Network. This consists of a number of free and low-cost tools to ensure success. Administrative reviews of your proposal. You know, this is highly competitive, so agencies look for any reason to toss out an application. If you use the wrong number of pages, the wrong font, other things that are minor, they will be thrown out under their administrative review. We will arrange to do that for free for your proposal. We'll also provide a basic proposal assessment for free. It won't be in-depth qualitative, but it will give you at least an idea of where you stand. We also give you resource identification and referrals, so you know exactly the next best resource to help develop your concept, your technology, your business. We'll provide introductions to program managers and other key resources like prime contractors who serve often as very good mentors. They themselves are barred from the SBIR program, so they use investments in partnerships with small companies as their R&D laboratory, so to speak. And then, one of the key assets, this is not necessarily free, but it would cost about 10% what a professional consultant would cost. We have brought together all of the experienced SBIR reviewers for the major agencies who are seeing, all of the proposals that come from other states and are constantly being told, man, if you guys could only get a hold of your Texas apps before they were submitted, y'all could have a much higher success rate. So these reviewers will generally spend 20 hours, but it will be, probably about $1,000 to $2,000 for that in-depth mentoring. But generally speaking, if you're in the top 20 or 30% of applications, we can essentially identify a golden pathway for success at that point. And that's what we're really trying to find, are the folks that have the potential for success and making the difference between a near miss and an additional award coming back for Texas. So this is the basic brochure. Some of you may have seen this. There's the link to register. It's at the Highland Business Center. ACC is giving us their conference room as a partner. Tibbetts award-winning Ray Friesenhahn, of course, is a facilitator. No prior experience is necessary. So we'll go over all of the basics. You'll go from not necessarily knowing anything about SBIR to being able to put together quite a credible proposal. These slides will be available to everyone. Perhaps Hall can distribute them, but we will make sure Hall has a copy right after this presentation. And these are all the partners we have just for the Austin area. More than 30 partners statewide, all trying to boost SBIR attainment for the state of Texas. So, and again, there's the link at the bottom.
Great. Well, thanks, Larry. Thanks, Eric. Are there any questions before we sign off for either Eric or Larry before we go and close it out? We have a great workshop coming up here soon that you want to participate in, and you'll have the links there, and we'll send these slides out to you afterwards for you to review as well. So I don't see any questions coming in, so I think you covered everything there, Larry. Thank you guys, both Eric and Larry, for coming on today. We've got a number of thank yous from the audience as well, so we appreciate the information that you shared. Send me the slides and I will pass it out to all the people that registered for today's webinar, and we'll go ahead and close it out from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.